Hey guys! Alright, today we're going to talk about how to write alerts. And there's a couple of really big things, right? So, you guys are good at math, especially if you're working on arrays for us. It means that I trust you because you're good at math and because you have understood the way that we run things, the way that we develop curriculum, in a sense, lots of stuff going on over there, right? So, what you will be tempted to do, oftentimes, is just put a couple of steps, right? Or even to just put like a vague sort of discussion, like for this question over here, to say something like, yeah, you know, you like do basic algebra, basic equations, square both sides, and then you end up with like blah blah blah, and so the final answer is 5. I think for this one it's 5, right? That's like super bad, right? So don't do that. That's definitely not what we want. And let's talk about why, right? So what we have to recognize is the purpose of these alerts. The alerts, if you're really good at math, the alerts aren't exactly for you, alright? If you're really good at math, the alerts are for the people who, for the instructors that we have, who are less familiar with the questions, right? Maybe they are good at math, maybe they do know how to square both sides, they definitely do, because I hire you guys because you're good at math, but they've never seen this question before, right? Technically, at some point, I had never seen this question before, and if I'm looking at it, and your instructions say to me, do basic algebra, you know, basic equations, square both sides, and then you end up with 5, that doesn't help me in any way whatsoever. That does not help me teach the student. So in that moment, when I, a talented math person, encounter this question for the very, very first time, okay, and this is what I see, you have to give me something that's going to help me in a, like, stressful, hot, like, fast-paced environment answer this question and help the student answer this question and understand what's going on, right? Furthermore, some of our instructors are at varying levels, right? So I've been here forever. I know, like, in my gut, that if a student ever were to write x squared minus 4x minus 5 without the equals 0, I would never accept it in a million years. I'd just laugh at them, right? Ha ha ha. This isn't even real math. This is a mockery. I would just make fun of them, right? Okay, whatever. But it's very important, right? However, if the instructors are brand new, right, so they've been here a month or like 2 weeks, right, at some point everybody is here for the first time. Everybody is here and brand new. They need to know what's important to us. So we've got to include things like you have to have that equals 0 in there. If you don't have this equals 0 in there, you cannot do math. Like, first of all, if you move the 2x and the 6 to the other side and you don't have the equals 0, then you've done it wrong. Because this equation does not magically turn into an expression just because you subtracted some stuff, right? So that math is fundamentally flawed. It's totally wrong. And then second of all, if you don't have it there, now you can't do anything else. Because if you don't have this equals 0, you could factor this, sure, but you can't get an answer. You cannot get x minus 5 equals 0, and therefore x equals 5. You cannot do that. So the entire rest of this problem is moot if this equals 0 is not there. However, if we are good at math, we tend to get lazy. When we are good at math, we tend to not consider certain things as important. That's not acceptable for our students, right? Our students don't know what's important, and so they're lazy about everything, and so they don't put anything down, and they hate writing down their steps regardless, right? So they don't want to put any of these steps at all. So you've got to make sure that the instructor knows which things have to be focused on, because the instructors are just good at math, so they might not think about it, right? So, must have the equal 0 in there. That's a super huge thing to include. Must have the or in there. This is also an important thing that we focus on in our factoring worksheet, which is one of the responsives. Super, super important. And I actually, so I drafted this one up. I actually put this one in everywhere, right? So this will be one line of text inside the alert. It says must have equals 0. This is a line right above it, must have equals 0. This is the next line, must have or, and then the next line after that, must have or. So as much as it's repetitive, tell instructors a million times, because sometimes it's hard to see this stuff, right? I mean, it's a sea of words when you're in Slack. It's just a sea of things happening and alerts, and some of the things the student can see and some of the things the student can't see, and sometimes there's pictures and sometimes there's, crazy characters and whatever's going on. It's a lot, right? Sometimes the instructors are working with multiple students, right? You guys sometimes will work with 4, 5, 6 people all at once. You want something that's going to make your life easy. You want to basically look at whatever the student says, look at this stuff over here, and be like, yeah, okay, cool. It looks like these steps match these steps. Perfect, right? That's what we're looking for. That's kind of the idea. Having this responsive in thoughts just clues you in as the instructor. Okay, there's going to be some thoughts over here. And the thoughts are obvious, right? The thoughts are the more basic thing, right? Yeah, you're just doing basic equations. You're just doing factoring. Okay, I got you. Put those in the thoughts, right? Put those in the responsive worksheets. But that's not the goal, for the initial part. So that's the level of detail we're looking for. Pretty much, I just put, every single step. Obviously, you can see here that I did not show, okay, we're going to subtract 2x from both sides, then simplify, then subtract 6 from both sides, then simplify, showing the subtraction, showing the this. Well, I didn't do that. But, if the student needs to do that, by the way, you just type vertical math at any point in time. But and that's kind of the idea. This is enough of a step where people can see, okay, you subtracted those things and then you got equals 0, and that makes sense. So you don't have to put every single, laborious step, but you need to put a lot of steps. Do not do, and I yell at my students for this, but do not do in the alerts, language math, right? Where you talk to people and you say, yeah, okay, so anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, do the thing, and then root the thing, and then if I, I'll move that thing over here, and then, no, right? That's not what we do. We don't even let our students do that. You're talking about, oh, I'm going to move this thing. That's not a math step, my friend. Moving is what you do when you don't want to live in one place anymore and you want to live in a different place. Moving is not what you do when you subtract something from both sides of an equation. That's not what it's called. It's not called moving, and we don't accept that, right? So don't put that in the alerts either, because if you put that in the alerts, the new instructors are going to think that if the student says, I'm going to move this to the other side, that's acceptable. That's not acceptable. That's not ever acceptable. It's not even real math. So that's all for that. Just giving you kind of an idea of how much detail we want in the thing. Obviously, there is some discussion here, right? But this discussion is talking about, okay, which thing is not a part of the solution set, etc. I didn't show the work to plug it back in because that's relatively simplistic. But these initial steps are really, really critical, right? So finding some kind of a balance. This part's going to take a little while. Talk to me. Let's develop, a bit more of a system for getting that sweet spot of information in the alerts. Cool.